where does this go after? Where does it, it's live?
Yeah, it's usually for broadcasts on the internet and Channel 23. I don't know that we're that important to be broadcasting live. Depends on what else is happening tonight.
Yeah, I don't
Just,
think. I thought they were going to maybe discontinue that anyhow.
right, you said
We'll
something
talk
about it.
Well, they're-
How much does it cost? Did you send how much it cost? Was it
Village pays like a little over $6,000
for a year?
for a year, but they get $40,000 in from the cable franchise fees. So it should, Anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow night at the village board meeting.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and convene the Environmental Policy Board meeting for October 24th, 2017 for New Paltz. First item is to call to order. We've accomplished that. My name is Ted Nitza. I'm a member of the Environmental Policy Board.
Susan Stessen-Cohen?
Don Kerr, liaison.
Rachel Godcup.
Okay. The next item is public comments. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, moving on to the next category. We have no public hearings scheduled for tonight, so we'll move on to administrative actions. We have the agenda that's gone out. Each of you have a copy that's got a couple of changes made since the last version was routed to you all. Does it seem all right to go forward with? Don, do I need a motion for that, or how?
Usually, yeah, make a
Okay,
motion.
all right. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Approve?
Aye.
So you moved, you seconded. Any discussion?
Okay, second.
No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Took really good minutes.
Yeah, the minutes are great.
I was
So,
impressed.
Do you
there-
need minutes today?
I was going to say, someone should write down minutes.
Oh, boy.
I think Rachel takes really good minutes.
Okay. From last time, there's two sets of minutes out there that I reviewed and looked at. September's minutes that Rachel put together, excellent job, and then August minutes that Alex had put together. I also thought those were a good job. I'll move that the August and September minutes as presented are approved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes from August and the minutes from September are approved as submitted. Payment of claims, I'm not aware of any claims for tonight, so we'll move on to the next category. Announcements, does anyone have any announcements for this evening?
Well, there's the Al Gore, SUNY New Paltz, the Environmental Task Force on campus has purchased the rights to show the new Al Gore movie. I don't remember. It's a sequel to An Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah,
And I sent you an email. It's Thursday.
this Thursday.
I believe. Let me see if I can
Thursday, I think, yeah, at the
connect
New
it.
Paltz campus. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll call that up. I just got connected to the internet, so.
Any other announcements? Okay. The next item I've got is EPB organization. At the tail end of the last meeting, NOAA brought up they thought there should be some changes in how we're administered. I am happy to serve, but when I go back through the legislation that enables our policy board, it does call for 3 positions named: the chair, the secretary, and liaison to the planning board. I am certainly willing to serve as the chair if you guys support that. Secretary and liaison to the board, or liaison to the planning board, are still out there for volunteers or
Aren't we
folks.
supposed to get a paid secretary? Like, aren't we supposed to get a few hours? I mean, that's what I thought. I didn't think I thought that that's what we're supposed to get, right, Don? I mean,
That changed a couple of board meetings ago.
why?
It had to do with them changing the way they film meetings, and one of the reasons that committees were assigned someone from the clerk's office was because that person had to set up the camera anyway, so they figured while they were here, and they had to break it down, it made sense for them to stay and take minutes. The village is changing the way that they're recording meetings, and in theory, there will not be a requirement to set up microphones again, although that remains to be seen. And so we decided to have the clerk's office personnel do clerking rather than be at these meetings. So that is something we've had and no longer do. I guess the upside is that required that we have our meeting right after the Affordable Housing Board, so both boards could share the same secretary. So now this group could meet on another night or another time, if that was of interest. But
We're responsible for our own minutes, in
Yeah.
other words.
well, that's the way it had always been. I mean, I think it's been about a year that we had the other arrangement, and we just went back to what was.
No, we've gone back and forth. I mean, for a while, we were able to pay for our own secretary with our own budget. And I don't see why we couldn't
Do we have a
that.
budget?
Yeah, we have a budget. Why shouldn't we? It's like only a couple hours, and it means, I mean, for me,
It's a lot of work.
it's better to have someone else do it, because then I don't have to, then I can actually more participate in the meeting, you know what I mean? I feel like, why not? I thought it was a good expenditure when we had it. We used to have a budget for secretarial hours, and I think they
What
gave
is-
us 3 a month.
What is our budget?
I think it's $300 a year.
How much?
$300.
A year? No way. We had like, what, did they cut it down to that? It used to be-
I may be thinking of a different, maybe that's the shade
That
trees.
we need to
budget
find
for,
out. We need to
trees.
find out
We
what
used
our
to have
budget
A
is.
few $1,000s it used to be.
Yeah, I guess that's right. At the end of last year, we were hurrying to spend it. Maybe it's 3,000.
Yeah. It
Maybe it's
was.
3,000. I may have
Yeah,
dropped.
300 sounds a little weird. Like,
Yeah,
what
it
would
does
we
even-
do with
even
that?
me saying it sounds weird.
Yeah, so I would, if we could move to spend some of our budget on a secretary, since we're not getting one from them anymore, I would like to do that.
I agree. I agree. It's a lot. I've been secretary, you have to keep the minutes, you can't listen the same way, and then you have to go and print them up after, and it's just, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, plus we
Okay, so
could
that's
pay
the
for
treasurer.
that anyhow, like, we could just pay, couldn't we just, we could even use one of the village secretary, we wouldn't have to hire somebody outside, we could even use part of the budget to pay Alex or somebody else to take the notes.
So Don will look into that for us, report back.
Yeah,
Right.
and
And
you
guys are
find out
okay
our real
with me-
budget.
You guys are okay with me looking into it?
I'm
Yeah.
looking into it, yeah. If we do have that flexibility, I think that would be great, and I think at that point, then we can talk to, or talk how we'd best implement that.
Okay.
Okay, so I would nominate Rachel as secretary if she is willing to accept my nomination for that.
But she doesn't want to take minutes.
I'll accept it with the idea that we're going to hire somebody.
That would be a
Donna's gonna
goal.
look at it, and that would be preferable.
Yeah, so I would nominate Rachel as secretary with the condition that as a board, we're pursuing some help for her to do that.
Thank you.
Susan, can you consider that motion?
Oh, yeah. What?
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor say
Sorry.
aye. Aye.
We have to do that for all the positions, don't we? Like also for chair, for.
Yeah, I was just
We
starting
didn't
off with
officially do
secretary.
that.
I'm sorry?
I don't think we officially did that last time.
Right.
So we nominate you as chair?
I'll,
Or can you nominate
I think
yourself?
you just did.
Okay.
okay, so.
All right,
so nominate-
second.
You just said.
I vote yes.
All right.
Aye.
Any discussion?
Unanimous? Nope.
No.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. The liaison to the planning board, there is a commitment level to that you go to the planning board meeting. So at least at this point, what I propose is we approach it ad hoc, and week by week, at least at this point, we see who's available and who could attend those.
And who
boards.
understands enough? Like, I couldn't do it because I still don't even know where.
Well, and I think that's part of it. I think we're all kind of just getting used to this role and going to the planning board. So I think it'll take the first couple of meetings to find out, what our role is. But it's an assigned role. If you accept the position of liaison to the planning board, you're expected to be at the planning board
When
meetings
do they
or
meet?
send someone.
Tuesdays, once a month.
Once a month on Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this time, I'd say, I would propose that we approach it week by, or month by month.
You know,
and
the
see
way
if we
it's,
fill it in.
I guess because this board and committee have had historically problems with people getting to this meeting, to get someone to commit to go to another meeting on a regular basis, it's been problematical. I think what we've done in the interim, or you've done in the interim, is use the criteria whenever any project is eligible for a seeker, for an environmental review process, that's when we kick in and take a look at it. So we haven't been attending the meetings. We've been using that
So
as
we don't even know what they're doing.
as the condition to, if something gets a seeker, we weigh in on it and look at all the paperwork and
So how would we find out that they're having a seeker done?
it's in their minutes and it's something that is
So-
generally,
Oh, so we'd have to go to their meeting to find out.
well, it would,
We get their meetings by email.
We
I
will
mean,
get their
if we
minutes.
want it, the minutes and the agenda.
We
Do
get
I?
them.
I
You
don't
can.
think I have.
We asked for it, because that's how we.
Do
the
you
only
get
way
them?
we
I don't
can-
either, but I'm learning. So apparently there's a resource.
Yeah, there's a list you can get on, so
I'm on it.
Don's on it, I'm on it, because I asked for it. You can, no, you just have to ask. But
I
if
think
you
what
look at the
happened
list-
was when the planning and zoning secretary set up the email list, it was before you guys were on it. And there's no procedure as of yet to say, new members, you know.
So who do we contact?
I'll contact her.
Okay, great,
and
thank
your-
you.
Your intended information.
So we'll both get on
Let's
it.
have a busy night.
Yeah, Don, hope you have bigger piece of paper.
Yeah, I got other sides. It's
Okay.
okay.
All right, so I would propose that we don't take any action on the actual liaison of the planning board at this point. But as chair, I'll keep an eye on it. For next meeting, we'll bring it up. We'll see if we're in a position right now to announce or some other way, come up with a strategy to.
I think once we start reading the minutes, we might understand a little bit more
Yeah, I
what's
do too.
going
I
on.
do too.
And we might want to, or I know you might want to, just as there's always the thing on the website, the New Paltz Times, we're looking for volunteers. Maybe there could be someone who is just liaison to the planning board,
Okay.
who could be a researcher. I don't know if the law that set up this
Okay.
body allows that, but that might be because I think the first goal is to be able to get people to come to this meeting.
Yeah.
Once
right.
we've achieved that.
Baby steps. All right, okay. Any other administrative actions? Okay, next item is reports from officers, committee members, others on all topics environmental policy board related. The first item is plastic bags in the village. I left it as general because both Susan and Rachel, you guys had talked or expressed some interest in what's next in that category. So I thought we could take some time to first establish that you two are interested in pursuing whatever it is that you guys would come up
Well,
with as
that's
the next
what I don't
steps.
know. Like, in my opinion, I think something needs to go in the paper locally and maybe some kind of, I don't know if there's an email list for all the business. I don't want to make flyers and make more paper to go out everywhere. So, just something where we notify, that's why if it goes out in the newspaper, and then we have a way to email the businesses in the village and tell them that we've had this this regulation or requirement, and starting on, say, like December 1st, we come up with a date, or January 1st, anyone that is using plastic bags, there will be a fine. Because we've been giving warnings, it sounds like, for a while. And, again, I'm new to this committee. I just know that Rachel, before you came here, I said my husband got takeout from Anatolia and came home and it was in a plastic bag. So they're still using plastic bags. So.
Are there actual, I'm not familiar with the actual ordinance. Is there actual fines levied?
$50
or-
for the first offense.
Okay.
And it's the building department, the building inspector, who would go to the properties. They are not going to proactively check on businesses and bags because they've got bigger things going on. So the first step I've been going and telling people, that seems to have been effective. When I say, if we send the building inspector down, it's going to be a $50 fine. So that's why I'm coming down, to make sure that you know what's going on.
Right, so they must be giving it to, like, if they gave it to us, they must be giving it to everybody.
Yeah.
Well, let me suggest this if I could. I like the idea of re-examining it or refreshing it now that it's been in place since 2016? Is that right? First 2016?
Earth Day 2 years ago.
Okay, all right.
So it's 2 years,
It's been a
right?
while, so it's time for a refresh. I think rather than come at it from an enforcement, I almost like to, maybe if you guys look into going at it from an educational standpoint. Hey, remember, this is out there. These are the reasons why. This is the benefit that can come from it.
I agree. I'm
and
more
then-
about the carrot than the
Well,
stick.
and turn it into a press release or turn it into a educational effort, and then at that point, then we can feel free to say, okay, look.
So you're saying in the paper to put something where we remind people that this is something that we came up with and these are the reasons why? Is that?
Yeah, these are the benefits.
I
and
want to
the
give
things
out
that
more
we-
bags, and the reason is because we gave out bags initially, but they weren't really a good solution because they were they were polyester or they were petroleum-based bags, and they were reusable. But the problem is you couldn't really wash them. So then they would collect.
So the bag-free NPZ bags? Really?
Yes, because you couldn't really put them in the wash, and so then the problem people had with them was because they collect bacteria. That's where they said, oh, you shouldn't use reusable bags because of this. And then Marnette, who's the one who was working on this, I thought found a real biodegradable bag, like a bag that would break down, and that really solves all the problems because then you can reuse it, but you don't reuse it. You know, you reuse it for garbage, or you reuse it once or twice. Then you don't have
Like
to
the
worry
ones
about
they
it.
give at the health food store, those plastic bags?
I think so. I think those are corn-based. But yeah, so
They're
some of the
probably more
stores already
expensive.
do. They're more expensive, but I was thinking we could maybe, we could buy them just like we bought the other ones and give them out, like, or find a way for people like to maybe bulk order them, to stores to bulk order them together, and they would be less expensive. And I don't know about promoting one brand or another, but I just feel like that was the solution we found, and we didn't really give out the thing that was really the best solution. So I'd rather do that and maybe have a message on the plastic bag, if that's at all
But
possible.
how-
Substitute plastic bags.
So we're saying that we have enough funding that we could go and buy plastic, you mean plastic
We'd have
bags
to
to
ask for
give?
the money, or we'd have to it'd have to come out of our budget somehow. I mean, I would guess that wouldn't cost more than a few $100s, and we spent that on those other bags.
To give it to all the stores, you mean?
We were
Who do you
giving
give
them out
it?
all over the place. And if they had a message that said plastic bags are wrong because of all these different reasons, which you're familiar with all of it, and if that were on the bag, then I think that would educate people. Plus, they would have this, they'd have their solution in their hand.
So when this first came out, was there like an educational thing? Was there?
There were articles, there were a lot of articles.
Yeah.
and-
So, since I never saw any of them, I'd like to see them because maybe we could take something that was really good that was there and republish it, if,
I think that's good stuff.
What happened was, the EPB took some of its budget, and the village board matched it, and we had these bags created, and they were given to Salvation Army, Methodist Church. There were 3 businesses in town who, if any vendor wants to come in and get 20 bags or 30 bags, here's where they are. It was Convenient Deli and New Baby New Balls and somewhere else. And they had on them a logo, a picture of a bag with bag-free NPZ. And there were probably 1,000 of them.
And how much did it cost? Do you remember?
2 years ago, I think it was like $700-800. Yeah, for 1,000 for a while. And I just gave out the last 25 of them 2 weeks ago because
Really?
someone at the farm market was giving out
The
plastic
plastic
bags.
bags still?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, we want you here, we like you here, here's some bags you can use, but please don't use the plastic anymore. It's like, just trying to do it in a positive way.
And if we have some kind of educational effort, after that, I wouldn't mind, we kind of team up and on a Thursday or a Friday or whatever, we kind of canvass the village, go door to door in the business and say, hey, look, I'm with EPB, just remember, don't use plastic bags, and this is why. We want it next door, something like that, just so we have some canvassing.
Well, it would be nice to have some samples of these other bags, and if we can find out, like, it would be great if we had like a little card that said the name of a couple of different companies that sell them and a way to get in touch with, like, so we do some of the legwork for them, like, here's like samples and you can get them at these different places, whatever,
Well,
something.
Deb Roush, who owns In Good Taste, her vendor actually found her a bag that worked. It's now being used by My Market, by P&G's, by In Good Taste, by the Gilded Otter. So she'd probably be the one to talk to. And I would just think having that vendor give us a price for what it would cost to print a logo or a message on, however many bags, and just.
And they use the special kind of ink, like they're going to use like a
There's-
soy-based ink or something.
I don't know that level of
I just
detail.
want to make sure that
Yeah,
we're not
yeah.
putting like a toxic stamp on the environmental
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
I
So-
can go talk to her. I know her.
Okay, well, she's a cheerleader
Yeah.
for the bags, so she'd be good.
So I think I talked with each of you before about, the EPB, sets out that we all have our pet projects, but I think a much better approach, at least for me, is to team up with a buddy system, whatever. So you two are on this one, over the next month, suggest that you guys meet, talk, brainstorm, and then at the next meeting, we can talk about what you guys have planned.
When are you available?
Well, what I would really like to do is to go visit Marnette together. That's what
I don't know
I'd
who
like to
she
do.
is, so.
She's the person who is doing this before. And she's a little frail. I'm not sure how frail she is. But she can't come to meetings anymore. She can't walk very well. Like, or I think, I don't know, Don, I never heard back from her when I emailed her. But I didn't like pursue it because I didn't want to bug her, but I don't.
Well, my information from Marnette is from a member of the family, and I've gotten very little detail beyond that she's not well. So I haven't really pushed her pride, you know.
See if she would I'd like to find out if she would want us to come over, because I know that's how it was before. She wanted to see people and wanted to talk to people. But she didn't want to go out. She wanted them to come into her place. And it's in the New Paltz Gardens Apartments. It's not far.
I'm not sure she's there anymore.
She's not there anymore? Oh,
This is a public meeting, so.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Okay, forget about it.
But,
We'll
so
talk
I'll
about it
follow up
later.
on that.
You'll follow up, I don't know. Anyhow, the only reason is that she was the one who did a
Right.
lot of, she knows who did what, and it was her project, so.
Mondays and Wednesdays are the only days I have free. I don't
Okay.
know what your availability is, but even if we could, if we could meet, and I don't know how we could find those articles, those old articles.
I think Google. I think we can find that. Or New Paltz Times, I'm sure they.
I mean, Terrence seems pretty approachable. Terrence, is that his name, the reporter?
Yeah, but he wasn't the reporter at the time.
Oh, okay.
But I do know the editor professionally. Yeah.
Okay. So
So-
do you put it on your list? You can find like which articles if
Once
they
this paper gets full, I'm going.
Oh, we got a half hour.
All right, well, I think that's,
We're not live. Are we live?
Well, we're being recorded.
Oh.
yeah.
Okay, so that's, okay.
So that sounds great. So you guys will get together, talk, and then at the next meeting, the
Sure.
goal would be to tell us what you guys, or how you guys want to approach it.
Okay, and then after that, we can deal with the styrofoam.
Sure, next Monday would work better this Wednesday I'm really busy, but I'm really busy.
Yeah, no, I can't do tomorrow. So I have your email through that, so let's
Yeah.
see if we can meet Monday morning would be great.
Absolutely. All right, what's the next?
Okay, the next item is the SOP for drilling. This is a version that came up, Don can talk on this too, from the last meeting. We have been asked, I would say, by the town or the village board to look at this and see if we can't improve it. Does that sound fair, Don?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of and this was talked by the EPB, I think a couple of months ago, right before my involvement. So I wasn't involved in the first time around with this, but I do have a couple of things that I'll talk through where I think it needs to go, but I don't necessarily have any direction yet. I'll have some suggestions. We'll chat through it, and then I think just like plastic bags, if we're not in a position to vote on something this evening, we can have it for the agenda for next time. Don, anything you want to add to that, or?
What does SOP stand for?
Standard operating procedure.
For drilling, and again, I don't understand this.
Okay. So the village is paying tremendous amounts of money to get drinking water from New
Oh,
York
this
City.
is what we talked about last month, okay, the drilling for
Yeah, I think
water, okay.
last time we talked about two documents. One was a policy document, and this was the
Okay.
standard operating
Now I got
procedures,
it.
or the nitty-gritty, we'll say.
Yeah,
Policy went through, was approved last time. SOP, we were asked to look at again.
okay,
To
this
add-
is, okay.
Right.
And this emerged, there was a similar project done by the New York City DEP in conjunction with the town and the village out of Plains Road,
Right,
and it didn't go well.
no, that I remember.
And so we asked some of the people who had experienced that to come in and talk to the EPB in terms of what would you suggest we tell the village for future projects? How do we avoid what happened to you moving forward? And this document, such as it is, kind of emerged from that. The red font is word changes that were done by the village board when the village board first looked at it. That's why there's two different color fonts.
looks pretty thorough. It looks like it covers all the bases to me. I mean, does it need to be worded in such a way that it's in complete sentences or something? Or what do they do? What is this? I mean, it looks.
I think part of the concern I had was when these things would take place, or what would do. For example, the second item, the public Q&A by hydrologist to educate the village board and the public. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. In fact, that's one of the 4 things that I've got in there as to happen, but when does it happen?
Well, you have to have an A before you can give a Q&A. So in order to have the A, you got to do the research, right?
Right. So, that's one of my things is I think it has to be tightened up a little bit as to when these things would take place or when they would not. I think there should be a differentiation between when public dollars or private dollars are spent. If it's a private project, they're on their own. If it
Like the
involves-
person that was here last month, kind of.
As long as he's still spending his own money, as an example, then he's got his own rules and regulations to follow. But the incident involves any public dollars, then that's when something like this would take place. And then.
So if they decide to look at Moriello Pool, that's what they suggested last month, isn't that, where did we hear? Like,
Moriello Pool and also Hasbrook Park.
right, which are both belong to the village.
Yeah.
Right.
So the question is, there's several stages, and the first thing you do is called dropping a straw in the terminology. You do a simple drill to see if there's anything down there. Then the next step, if that goes well, is to do a test drill, which is more extensive and let you know whether you're going to go down 150 feet, or whatever the depth is, to see if there's really a well there that will be sustainable. So the question is, at which stage do you have the public information session with the professionals? And that's undefined here, and I think there's a desire to define that. When would that happen?
Do you want our opinions on that, or do you, or?
Oh, I'm trying very carefully not to give any opinion, because I'm going to talk about this as a village board member.
No, I was
The village
asking,
board is
do you want us to give you our opinion? That's what I'm saying. Is that something that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the village board wants a recommendation from this body that they can accept or modify or.
Yeah.
If I think of it as like a homeowner that lives near somebody, I think after they drop the straw and they see it's something that would be, for me, that's what I would think. But that's without having some of the knowledge that maybe other people might have. I would just say it's kind of to inform everyone before they've even done the first step might be getting people alarmed or worked up for nothing, because it might not be anything. And once the straw, what you're saying, the first step goes in, and then they see that that might be something viable, that would make sense then to tell the public, this is where we are right now, instead of waiting till you do the drill, right? So from what you told me, the stages, to me, that would make sense, but.
I was thinking along those same lines. I was a little bit further along than that. Since Don and I talked about last meeting, where I put the line was 10-hour test, and because there's that I'm aware of, no such thing as a 10-hour test. There's 1 hour, 8 hour, 24 hours, 72 hours. So I picked 10 so that there's never a mistake as to, well, it was 10, so does that mean it applies or not? So, normally it's going to be 8 or it's going to be 24.
See, you didn't tell me about all these other stages.
Well, we don't, that's what we're exploring now.
Right,
So where I'm coming to is something like, if it's going to be beyond a 10-hour test, that we would have the public job, and again, this is public dollars for a public project, beyond 10-hour test, that they would be required to come in, be available for a Q&A at a village meeting, at least 10 days before they would actually do that test. So then what it turns into is exactly what we've got here is an SOP, standard operating procedure. If you're going to spend public dollars on a pumping test more than 10 hours, your hydrogeologist needs to come and present at a village meeting their plans and be available for questions and answers. And then the last part is that this SOP would sunset unless it's revised or re-enabled on January 1st, 2019. So all of 2017, all of 2018, if we see it's working great, it gets reauthorized, but if nothing takes place, that, somewhere in 2021, somebody comes back and says, gotcha, you're coming from what we forgot all about it. That it does sunset on its own powers unless it's reauthorized by this or the village board. Those are the concepts I've got out there. Public dollars, professional geologist presentation after 10 hours, and sunsets after 2000, after all of 2018. But it was important for us to kind of talk through this, see where we're at, and whatever we do would be a revision of this document.
Well, you know a lot more than I do, so I agree. Again, I hear my husband talk about this stuff, but I've never listened very hard.
Well, your perspective as a homeowner nearby, I think, is important. I mean, what would someone on the street be thinking if this were taking place? Rachel, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I'm sitting here trying to put a number on each of these, because I
Right.
think that's like a writing these number, like to put them in order. And some of them, it's kind of like, well, you want to, at what point is the, and it says baseline testing prior to step tests. This one right here. I mean, like I said, if you're talking about getting information from a hydrologist, at what point do you want what information? You want, because I guess, the actual test drilling is information that you get that could also impact, it's not like it's not something that's just a test that only tests what's there. By drilling, you actually affect what's going on. So, I don't know what exactly is meant by baseline. The baseline testing would be to test everybody's wells before you start, and that way, in that case, that comes before you actually drill the test well. If that's what you mean by baseline testing. That's what you mean by baseline prior to step test. Okay, so that's got to come a lot earlier. That's got to come right after you, at first you would inform the public, hey, we're thinking about checking this out. Then you collect all the information from the public. You get their well log data. You ask them, what's your water quality like? You're drinking out of this. Let's see what it is right now before you actually make a test, because you need to know what the pre-existing conditions are before you make a test, because the test is going to affect those conditions. That's what I'm trying to say. So I would just put these in a numerical order or some, and give it back to them. Because everything here is things we agree need to be done. The only question you have is at what order are they to be done, right?
Well, rather than order, though, for
Put
me,
'em in.
it's timing and extent. Similar to what Susan was saying about having people alarmed or worked up about nothing if nothing's going to come of it. I think
Right.
the likelihood of a project coming out of it, you've got to get a couple of steps in there before you actually know if it's going to come of anything.
Right.
I don't necessarily want to go through some of those tests that you're talking about unless there's a viable project.
Yeah, it's also, there's an expense with going and doing all the work that has to be done, before that, so.
I think baseline testing would be at the expense of the homeowner. And it's a question of at what point do you send them a letter or knock on their door to say, hey, if you want to test your water now, you should.
Okay,
Because
that's up
we're
to
about to start
them.
doing test drilling. It's just a question of, at what point.
Yeah, I wonder how, I'd like to know what type of test you would give them and how much does it cost? And is there a way of maybe putting together a kit for people and saying, hey, for $10 you can get this is a, water testing kit. Don't you want to know what your water quality is anyhow? You're drinking it every day.
Well, I think the testing would need to be done by a lab.
Right.
So,
But you could collect the samples and send them all in together to one lab or something. You know what I mean? There must be a way of doing it so you're not putting instead of just saying, hey.
It's hard to tell people that they have to spend their own money when you're coming up with something that's going to change possibly their
Right.
environment, and it's hard to say, well, if you want this done, you pay for your test yourself. I think once we know that it's going to happen, that you're going to drill, I would think, then before you start if you get the samples or whatever you have to do first that won't actually change anything, but then you say, okay, now we're going to do it, I think the village needs to pay, whoever wants to get their areas tested, I think we'd have to pay for it. The village would have to.
The village would love to, but it's illegal to spend tax dollars providing a service to one resident, or 2 or 10, if you don't provide those services to every single resident in the village, because it's tax money.
Well, I would love to do it as a research project and get a student to do it, because then you completely sidestep all of that. Because basically it's not giving anybody anything, it's a matter of, okay, so we know there's an aquifer here, and that aquifer is important not only because it supplies people's wells, but because it is part of a nature preserve that we've spent a lot of time getting together, and depends on good water in order to be a biologically diverse and viable preserve, and also because it's a potential source of water for the entire village. So I think that that's perfectly justifiable, and I don't know exactly what tests need to be made, but I really wanted to work with campus and try to find somebody who would be willing to help with that. But it's that, I don't know if we have that, if that's on if the whole internship thing is on the agenda, but I heard back from the person from geography, and they're definitely interested. And I just wanted to make sure that what I had written was okay with you and with, I guess, with Neil Betez, the town supervisor, who has also expressed an interest, but I haven't heard back from any of them, and I've got to communicate back with her. But I'd really like to get this whole thing together. I'd like to be able to actually have, all the projects that we have done available to students the way I used to have it at the Career Center, and then I would get volunteers, get students who are interested in doing the work. And then it's up to them, like as far as the protocols, that's established with their professors and everything.
Whether people pay for a lab to do it, or we have, that sounds great, what you're talking about. I guess the question here is, when do
Don't know enough.
we ask the village to inform people so they can decide on their own whether they want to
I think
go
what
to
you
a lab or
said,
go to the campus?
And it's not even the
what
village.
Ted said?
These people all live in the town. That's the weird thing about this. If you look at the map right there, you see where the preserve is. The preserve is all in the village. The aquifer, the water, is all in the village. But the actual homes around the edges of it whose wells are drawing on it are in the town.
Well, I think it was more broad-based, though, to any kind of drilling operation, whether it be in the village or the town that involves village money. So not just the Millbrook, but the others. I think, where I come out at for sending letters and things like that is to rely on the professional hydrogeologist. I think each one of these situations is going to be different. I think when they do that straw, when they look into it, they do the research, and they're at the point where they're ready to do a 10-hour test, or a test in excess of 10 hours, at that point they'll have a professional opinion, which their license depends on, as to who should be notified and what. That's where I come out at it, but it's not, it's certainly not based on, let's let everybody know that, it's within a 2-mile radius, and each one would be different. But we rely on the hydrogeologist for that.
Well, when that comes to the village board, I'll probably take a different position, because we're looking to see what the village's procedure is, and it should be standard for all projects. And it would be the village that would be taking the heat if things go wrong. For whatever reason, this is the same hydrologist who didn't
Plains
foresee
Road.
problems at Plains Road.
Maybe they
And
need to use
is
someone
he-
else.
Is he the same one? Is he and Floyd has hired the same one?
Yeah.
So his information that it won't be a problem because it's a different kind of rock may or may not be.
Well, I just think, well, yeah, I'm trying, I don't want to get.
No, I hear
I
you.
don't want to say too much.
It's dumb to make the same mistake twice. And this protocol here, or the SOP here has, provision for a second opinion, which I guess would protect us from that. But,
Why are
wow.
you using the same hydrologist, the same hydrologist if he's the one that,
I didn't vote aye. I couldn't.
okay,
be the one
can't
to answer
discuss
that.
that.
And Donna, I mean, I recognize your point, that's why I say whoever the hydrologist is, the hydrologist in general, we should be picking the right hydrologist for the right project. But making that assumption, then the SOP would be tied down to that same hydrogeologist, whoever that person is,
Right.
not necessarily the personality.
Well, no, I just think, the very definition of baseline is before anything happens.
Right.
So when is before anything happens, then that's a judgment call, yeah, that's what we're trying to figure
Right.
it out.
Okay,
And the
so-
kind of data we already have, because those people's wells have already been drilled. And so there's information you can get. The well log data is something that they could get with no expense. They would at least know how deep they had to drill in order to hit water. They would get some idea of, how deep and where.
Who's the they? I'm not, you lost
All of the people with wells around the
I don't remember
edge.
how deep my well is.
No, but there's a record of it, because whenever they drill a well, they take a core, there's like, they take
Oh, right.
and so
So
there's
the-
like there's a record of how deep did they hit the water, and whatever they know about whatever sorts of soil that they're drilling through. There is that information, and it's I have a list, like I think I shared it with you, but I had started doing this many years ago, so like I have the maps that show who lives around it, and a list of names of the different well drilling companies, because you don't even need to go to the homeowner. You can just go to whoever the company is that drilled the well and get that information. So there's like information we can get without even, that's free and that doesn't involve, too much testing. And then I suppose, rather than testing every well, you could say, okay, well, we're gonna, draw a perimeter, around this, and we're gonna test one here, one here, one here, one on each. I don't know.
Well, the village can't do the testing, it's up to the homeowners, so it's just a question of
Right.
how and when
I'm
you
sure we
communicate
could
with the
find,
homeowners.
the other thing is that there is a record of some of those wells, because when they built Woodland Pond, they tested everybody's water, like people in the vicinity of Woodland Pond.
They didn't test mine.
They didn't test
I wish
yours.
they
Well, I know
did.
they tested some of the wells there, I'm not sure exactly.
My water changed.
Huh?
My water changed.
Did it?
Oh, yeah.
After they put in Woodland Pond? So,
And we also got, all of the pesticide that they spray on their lawns that I've gone there and protested already, goes right down the stream in the back and goes right through my property.
Yeah.
So there's not, I told them that, and it doesn't, they still keep spraying, so I'm just saying that.
that's another thing you're right about, because, or Woodland Pond was just a real lesson to me on how you can just make all of the stipulations you want at the planning board. And they did. There were all kinds of very specific stipulations, and one of them was that they were not supposed to be using pesticides. And they weren't
They
supposed
spray
to be.
the inside and the outside of that place totally. The flags are up all the time, don't step on the lawns, they just spray.
Right, so they don't hold to their agreement. So it's kind of like, one of our purpose here is to try to get, those sorts of things put into the DEIS, and they were. And there was a really elaborate planting schedule for Woodland Pond, and I have it. And one of the things I was thinking, if I could ever get somebody interested in it, was wouldn't it be really cool to see which of those plants are still alive, which ones survived, and then they're still putting. That area was already.
They go all the way and then up onto North Putt, they spray all the way.
They should not be doing that, because there's
I protest, I met with the
There's a
CEO.
federal
We're on
wetland.
we're
Yeah,
on
we're
a-
on-
Right, there's
Yeah.
actually a federal wetland between North Putt Corners and Woodland Pond. There's like a long, thin federal wetland, and they're not supposed to be messing with that
That's
at
my
all.
property, all that
I would say
wetland.
that Woodland Pond is a village property. You are commissioners on the Village Environmental Policy Board.
Let's follow up
If you
on
have an
that.
interest,
Oh, I've gone,
I-
I've protested
No, but I
there.
mean,
I've
what do you
gone to
mean
their
by
CEO.
And but the
Well,
village,
you are now a
but the
commissioner
building
of the village
inspector
board
hasn't come after
with
them.
some
They don't like the DEC. I had to call the DEC 3 times when that thing
So
was
when we
going
meet
up.
next week, let's talk about this too.
Okay, so,
It's a good,
So
like,
I'm gonna add you guys as a reports for next time, Woodland Pond implementation similar to plastic bag implementation.
yeah, my mother-in-law's not there
Revisit.
anymore, so now I can, I was scared they'd hold her hostage
All
for a
right,
while.
so back to SOP then. Before the next time, what we'll need to do as a group is to suggest red lines or, direction on this to where it could carry at least a majority vote next time.
Right, and you want to know
Back.
when, in our opinion, you think the best time would be to alert the neighbors that this is about to happen.
Yeah.
Right, so in order for me to make an educated decision on that, I need to understand like the whole process. And you know what, I'll talk to my husband, he knows all this. Okay.
So we'll get a version, run around, back and forth, similar to a minutes, and then we'll talk about it next time.
So I'll go down this list and identify what I think the questions are that need to be clarified. I'll send that to you, so we're on the same page, and we'll send that to everybody. And these are the questions we need to answer for the next meeting.
Sounds good. Okay, next time is paint swap implementation. Gregson's been driving that issue. I don't mind that it's just him because it's mature, we'll say at this point. I think it's ongoing. I think it's doing a great job. I see the Facebook posts. I know Alex is involved, so hats off to Gregson. Sanitary sewer capacity report. It is drafted. I am working on the full draft of that. I've briefed Don, and I have my intern working on the drafting. I've already done the data, so I hope to have perhaps this at the next meeting to present to you all.
Good for you, because that's not easy to track down. We've tried
Right.
that before. I know exactly what you're going through.
The pit parcel, I spoke to one of the representatives yesterday. They are meeting this week to talk about where they're going with the project. I know
Where
it's
are
on
they
the-
meeting?
I'm sorry?
Where are they meeting?
Their private meeting, it sounds like.
Yeah, in terms, like they've gone through their public outreach, now they're reconvening to talk about what they're doing next.
I
as we
see.
described.
Okay, so that's a
Now,
private meeting.
I did pass along that this group is interested in having them talk. They do know that. They've asked me for meeting dates. I gave them the next couple of meeting dates. They may come here, or they may establish a time that we can all go out there. But
Go
they-
out where?
Well, their office is over here at the karate place.
Huh.
Oh, they have an office there now, huh?
Oh,
Or
they're
are they
they're
already-
camping out.
Sorry?
They're camping out here already?
Well, it's an office. I don't know if it's not a camping.
No, I'm saying they're camping out, I'm saying they have an office locally for this project already?
Well, I think the developer group or the.
They were here
company.
already, or they're here for this? That's what I'm curious.
their business was in Brooklyn, though.
So that's scary, that they're camping out. That's what I'm saying, they're here.
Right. Well, my impression has been here.
Yeah, they have a project in front of the planning board, they got 3D models, they put a lot of money into it, so, they're
I wonder if they
pretty far along.
fixed that 3D model.
I'm sorry?
I wonder if they fixed that 3D model. It was a joke.
So,
So this looks like it's like, you think it's going to happen?
I have no idea if it happened, I'm just saying that this developer has.
Right, but I'm saying,
put a lot
but for them to have a local office here is presumptuous.
They're gonna have to get through, they're asking for a lot of variances as far as what I can see, so they're gonna have to.
And this is all the planning board that's going to make this
It's
decision?
the zoning board that
Yeah.
they're gonna have to go through.
Well, the planning board
Wow.
would approve or not approve the project. If they want variances, the next step is they go to the zoning board of appeals, the ZBA, and say, we can't meet the local rules in these 7 ways, can you?
And
allow
how do
us to-"
we get involved in this?
well, as I understand, until it's an official project, they've made an official presentation, we don't have an official role that I'm aware of. What Gregson and I have done, is we've reached out to them, met with them, said, hey, we're interested in helping provide you information that makes this a better project for this community. That's what Gregson and I have done. Now, when we came back and told you about that last time, you guys expressed, you said you wanted to meet them too.
I need
So
more
we-
information, and again, I can't even, just in my opinion, I can't even see how anything like this could possibly happen in this town. But that's another whole issue. I don't know how, but,
Well, it's a matter of scale. I feel like with all developers, their main motive is
is, to make a profit, so they're going to try to make it as big as they think they can possibly get it. And I think they expect it to be cut down, to be made smaller. They've already made it smaller than it was in the beginning, right? They're going to have to probably take it down a few more notches. But they always try to get as much as they can. If they're going to choose a shape for a building, it's always a cube, because that takes up the most volume.
Look what happened on Main Street, Look at
Yes.
that monster, so I just, all right, I won't, but so we don't really have anything to say. I just have to leave in a couple of minutes.
Sure,
So,
sure.
I know Water Street, all right, I'll wait for you to say it.
Just real quickly, I don't know if you were on the board yet, but Noah Lynch did an incredible research project on the pit, where he looked at all sorts of publicly available information and delivered a ream of information to the planning board, which I'll send to you. Do you have that?
He gave that to me, and he asked that get sent on to these folks also.
Gotcha.
So I'm getting that stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
It's a lot of information, but it's
I'd like to, the more information, the better.
Okay, next item, the Water Street Market.
All I know is that it's on hold now because they said that they can't guarantee what times the shows will be. I guess the village wanted to know exact, and the neighbors wanted it to be exact. This is when it's going to be open, this is when it's going to be used. And from what I read in the paper, they said they put it on hold.
there's no additional dedicated parking, so
Oh, and
they
the
would
parking
need to have their
too.
shows at times when Water Street
That's-
Market is not in
That's why
busy or
the
in
times-
operation. And I think the expectation was, everyone involved thought that they had agreed up front to
With the
limitation on the
times.
time. And when they got to the very last meeting before it was signed, sealed, delivered, the developer said, no, not doing that. And so that was just a couple weeks ago, so I'm sure they're talking about that.
What's it like from what I heard, it's like an individual's just doing this project. Like, the
Why don't
fact
they
that
just
it's
take-
completely unviable economically doesn't matter.
They have that shopping
expect to
center
make
where
money from
ShopRite
it.
is. It's like half that center is empty.
Right.
Like, why don't they put a theater up there? Like, why don't they
It's-
put something, like we have these big spaces that are ruined already. Like, why not take the ruined
The
space?
school board looked into putting our district offices there a couple years ago, and they actually have a lot of restrictions. It has to be retail. Has to be retail.
Just a quick aside, just for 1 second, is I was in Rosendale, and I just saw what they did. I've been there a couple of times already with the Rosendale Elementary School, and I thought, what an incredible repurposing of a building. I don't know if you've been in there, but every single room is another office, like between, they took 2 towns, put all their offices in, then they have ARC having a cafeteria set up there that caters and everything. It's like they met so many needs in this
Yeah.
old school building, and but why don't we look at repurposing in this town? I don't know. All right, anyway, back to
Okay.
this.
Green Infrastructure Steering Committee, that RFP is out right now. There was a meeting internally a couple days ago. We're expecting the proposals here in the next couple of weeks, I think, so a little bit more on that later. Open space inventory, that's Noah's project, he's not here this evening. Residential refuse trash collection contract, you and I are, so they had a meeting at 5 o'clock where they invited the contractors who are planning to.
Who had the meeting?
The town did.
Okay.
Like a pre-proposal meeting.
Mhm.
Proposals aren't due until January, but they had a meeting tonight for informational. I went to it just to see what's going on. There are 5 or 6, I'd say, contractors here that are interested in it, so I think that was good.
So do we have to do any work in terms of coming up with, because I remember you talked about pollution, like all the different reasons why it was for everyone's best interest to use like one company.
Yeah,
We get a
yeah.
better price, we get blah, blah,
Well, my goal was to put together a report that talks about the environmental benefits of having such a trash approach.
And so that's a done, like they realize that now, and so they're looking at companies to see that now?
Well, I think they did that without our involvement. I think they're already going through
Okay.
it, but my
And this is the village or the town?
village and the town. It'll be a dual.
Let's actually start here. Dennis Young, before he was a village trustee, this was his project for the.
Who is that?
Dennis Young, who was on the village board.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he's carried it on, and now it's a joint project.
That's
with
great,
the town and village.
that's great,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Last item, electric vehicle charging station. It's actually under construction out here, if you guys have seen it, right by the stream. Am I pointing in the right direction?
Wait, is that what that hole's being dug for?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
It just got approved last meeting.
Oh, wow, I was looking at the hole and I just didn't really, I thought, there's always problems with the sewer and the water, and I thought it was just another problem. I didn't realize it was actually building.
Now, how that
That's
impacts
nice. Wow.
us is in the grant that was written to get the funds for that, there is some involvement from the EPB to do some tracking or policy calls on who can use it, when can they use it, and what kind of return it has, whatever.
Do people pay to use it?
That's what has to be put together yet. So I think we'll have some involvement in that. I don't know exactly yet, but it's on our horizon.
What kind of plug does it have? Like, what can you charge with it? Can you charge your phone? Can you charge, like, I know they have phone charging stations on campus.
Yeah.
This is for cars.
I think it's for cars.
Just for cars.
Like blow out your phone.
And how many people have cars here?
Electric cars?
Well, the idea is build it, they will come. If you have someplace to charge your car in the village, maybe people will buy the cars. That's a great program.
I was just looking there.
Old business, the old business. Seeing none. New business. I have a environmental policy research nomination. His name is Christopher O'Brien. He's already been working for me on the sanitary sewer report, and he'll be working on the trash report next too. So I'd like to nominate Christopher O'Brien as one of our environmental policy researchers.
Terrific.
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Nope.
He's a great kid.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item, Nature Crossed Boundaries Conference, November 6th. Rachel's expressed some interest. I've expressed some interest.
Where is
Don-
it?
It's at Mohonk.
And you're on
It's
the
on
agenda for
Monday.
tomorrow's village board meeting to have the money approved to go.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll go on my own if I go. I mean, it's $50 and stuff like that. So,
It's something that, the village would pay for.
right, and I don't know if I can go yet. I'm still working on this.
Okay, yeah.
But what I'll do is,
I'll look up, is there a description? Is it what,
Yeah, there was an email that went out.
yeah, it's a day conference. It looks really interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's a day up at Mohonk, so there's worse things you can do.
I'll send you
Okay.
the,
I'd like to see?
Yeah, the title's here on the agenda, so just Google that and you'll find it too. But yeah, send it to her.
I will. Oh, I pulled up the Al Gore thing, if there's still any. I mean, it was funny because this meeting, we were like, well, how can we get students to come see Al Gore? He's not exactly the most compelling figure. But it is this Thursday, the 26th.
Okay.
And it's in the lecture center. And what they're doing is, they're doing this thing where they wanted to include as much as possible, get as much bang for their buck, because they paid like $700 or something for it. So at 5 o'clock, they're going to screen the documentary. At 6:45, they're going to have this live streaming thing with Al Gore himself.
Really?
Yes. And then at 8 o'clock, they're going to show the movie again. So you can either see the live stream first and then the movie, or you can see the movie and then the live stream.
Oh, cool.
And you're supposed to be able to, ask questions or whatever.
On Thursday at New Paltz.
Yeah.
SUNY New Paltz.
SUNY New Paltz Lecture Center.
Other items of interest for the
LC
board.
100.
No? We're good?
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
You have a quorum there.
All those in favor say aye. Thank you.
Now I'll get
Good meeting.
Thank you.
done when I-
And then we'll talk before next Monday.
Yes.
Okay?
We will. We have a number of items here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you want to get involved with Woodland
No,
Pond.
because the Woodland Pond,
There's a new CEO there that seems to be very nice. and
the
I know
original
them all.
one was terrible. Do you have any idea how corrupt that whole thing is?